it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I am your host, Casper Leach. You are listening to the broadcast at Time for Hemp on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and of course, iHeartRadio. We are the only all-cannabis broadcasting network on iHeartRadio. Please make it a point to share us and the app with your friends. Brand new year. Last year, we said goodbye to a good friend of ours, Peter Criss, our joint host for about 5 years here on the big broadcast, and Peter's hopped on his horse and rode off into the sunset to enjoy the remaining days of retirement with his sweetie, and we wish him all the happiness and comedy that life can bring any one individual. And we have sitting in Peter's place, can't say it's really, you can't replace Peter Criss. He's a unique individual, so we had to really look for somebody who had a lot of credentials, and we found a judge willing to take time for hemp, Judge Lenny Frieling. And, Your Honor, we have as a guest today Dean Becker. Dean has been a joint host on LEAP programming as well, and even a guest host on the network when I wasn't well enough to do my shows at time. And he is part of our Time for Hemp family. Gentlemen, hello, and I hope your new year is prosperous and full of joy. Thank you for taking time for hemp.
Casper, thanks for inviting me. And I think we can think of me as Peter's successor and student.
Well, I'll tell you, he brought a lot to the table, and I know you will as well. And I don't know, have you had a chance to meet Dean Becker yet?
Dean,
I think we saw each other at a conference somewhere, didn't we? I don't know.
Albuquerque?
Maybe. Yeah, I was at that one. Or maybe I ran into you on the Caravan for Peace and Justice when we came through Albuquerque. I don't know.
Casper and Dean, as you both know, the reality is we are a small world. And although we don't always know each other by name, most of us know each other. We know each other's faces. And that suggests to me that one of our missions for the next year may be to broaden that so that there are so many people, we just don't know them all.
Well, how did you get involved with LEAP, Dean?
I think it was 2003. They were having a Drug Policy Alliance conference in New Jersey, and I was there as a reporter, pretty much a marijuana reformer, and I ran into this guy's name was Jack Cole, and he was heading up the group Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and I was interviewing him, and I started hearing his thoughts and his understanding, his experience, and about in the middle of that interview, I said, well, I was a cop in the Air Force, can I join? And he said, well, hell yeah, or something like that, and I joined LEAP right in the middle of our interview. And then we continued the interview, and I broadcast it over the airwaves. Since that point in time, I've interviewed well over 100 LEAP speakers, because that is my band of brothers and sisters. I think they have the exact focus we need to help end this stupid drug war.
Now, you've got a new book out, don't you?
I do. I'm really proud of it. It's To End the War on Drugs. We have a second edition. It's called the Policymakers Edition, and it includes pages from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, as well as my other organization I work with, the James A. Baker III Institute for Public Policy here at Rice University. And it contains the opinions, the thoughts of more than 100 guests been on my radio program. Everybody from UN drug czar to, pot dealers. And it has a wide-ranging perspective, and it gives us examples of the failures, of the futility of this drug war. And then, of course, the opening chapter, the closing chapter are mine, and basically ask what is the benefit of drug war? What the heck do we get out of this? Expenditure of $1 trillion at least stopping the flow of drugs, $10 trillion flowing into the pockets of terrorists, cartels, and gangs. And we've never stopped even one determined child from getting their hands on drugs. What exactly are we up to? And the book kind of rips the lid off the belief in drug war.
Well, and you're absolutely right. We haven't stopped any determined child. I remember the first time that I wanted to get marijuana to smoke. I was about 15, and it didn't take me more than a couple of weeks to make the right connections and make it happen. Your Honor, I pass the questions over to you.
How to make a short story short. Always a modern challenge. I was sitting as a judge in the city of Lafayette. I did it over a period of 8 years, and although it was not my full-time day job, I heard thousands of cases. And that included some pot cases. But the key to it was this. My boss went to the city council and said, this $100 maximum fine for possession up to an ounce of pot is just it's no good. People just pay the $100 and I can't make them go to marijuana school. I happen to like the guy, don't get me wrong. We still get along great. But when he went to the city council, my wife pointed out to me that it had made it, she spotted it in the neighborhood rag. Thank them very much. He had gone to the city council and said, as a home rule city, we can change the penalty to $1,000 fine or a year in the county jail or both just by the city council voting for it. It had already passed the first vote. When it got to the second vote, and my wife pointed it out to me, my reaction was a combination of, one, this is the best opportunity to resign a position I've ever been confronted with in my life. Nobody could give me a better chance to make a point. And, oh, by the way, I had learned I didn't want to be a judge when I grew up. I learned what I could and was continuing to do the job my best. When that hit the fan, I wrote a letter of resignation to the city council saying, I cannot ethically take the bench, put on the black robe, walking in the door, knowing with no question I absolutely refuse to enforce one of your laws. That's not what you pay me for. It's not ethical. It's wrong. So I quit. The letter came out pretty good, so I thought I'll send it over to the county, the Boulder Daily Camera, letters to the editor, because I thought it made the point well. The state fine at the time was $100 for an ounce or less, so at the time we matched the state, but due to oddities in Colorado, they could have gone the $1,000 year in jail had they so voted. The newspaper shifted it from the letters to the editor to the news desk. I had a personal experience with this going viral experience. AP picked it up. It went international within 24 hours. The the ACLU jumped in. LEAP jumped in. Civilians jumped in. The city council ended up getting in excess of 3,000 emails. The next thing was set for a study session open to the public. The city council realized what the public meeting was going to be like, and they said, tell you what, we withdraw it. We're not going ahead. Ironically and correctly, they said, we don't have time for this. Well, hell, that's all I was trying to tell them to begin with. We don't have time for this. And if we, the city council, ever consider this again, we're starting from ground zero, not from a second vote. So it was one of those instances in which we as activists working together won. 100% victory. And not only that, today, 8 years later, 7 years later, I'm thinking, Lafayette is a pot-friendly town. We have commercial grows that the cities approved. We have medical, we have recreational, and we're a town of 18,000 people on the eastern end of Boulder County, like a well-kept secret. So to get to the point of the story, having told the story, LEAP got involved and informed me that I am now a former judge. And as a former judge, did I have any interest in being a speaker? And I said, well, sure, whatever. I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. And it got set aside, and about 5 years later, I think it was Darby Beck called me up and said, I'm from LEAP, and your name came up. We need speakers. We don't have anyone in Colorado. You sound perfect. And that's all she wrote. I was indoctrinated. I was exposed to the LEAP rationale at the Drug Policy Conference in Albuquerque some years ago. And even with it not expressed as fully and clearly, once it was laid out for me, it was so logically, compellingly obvious, ethically, morally, legally, and in every other way that the LEAP answer was the only answer, and that the others were just not fair answers, but flat out wrong. It was, to me, believing I have the logical mind, it was a black and white, very simple question. And one way that I explain it to people that I've found people seem to get is, although they don't think being a heroin addict is a good thing, if you ask them, is it such a bad thing that a heroin addict should be exposed to a randomly administered death penalty? And they pause, and they think, and they say, well, no, it's not a death penalty crime. And I explained how the present system makes it a random death penalty crime, and how the LEAP approach deals with that. Interestingly, I've been comparing coca growth to coffee growth and coca prices to coffee prices. And I just read that another country is taking coffee growers from the Colombian region and, I'm sorry. They are bringing them out to the poppy growing regions, which are now springing up in the Golden Triangle more than they have for years, and teaching them coffee as an alternative, which is being met with some progress. I think that's the high concept.
Okay.
Or should I say, I think that's the high concept.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think about my trip to Bolivia. It's been now 6-7 years ago. But every person I met in Bolivia, that was a justice minister, as an example, a Christian minister, and a prison warden were the three that stand out. They were chewing coca. Every person I met in Bolivia was chewing coca. But these were the justice minister, a Christian minister, a prison warden, were chewing coca and thought nothing of it because it was just accepted. It was the norm. Nobody was getting high or addicted or otherwise influenced by this coca. It was just like drinking coffee might be here in America, or other mild habits that we do here that nobody thinks anything about. And it was true in Bolivia with this coca. They have the soft drinks with coca in it, just like we used to with Coca-Cola. But it's accepted. It's embraced. Heck, it's part of the society. It's how they do things down there. And yet, we don't allow coca here in America because it's considered dangerous, I suppose. And yet, because it's so bulky, no one wants to smuggle coca. It's huge compared to, takes, pounds to make a gram of cocaine. And so we get the cocaine that, and as Leonard was saying, these drugs are made in primitive labs by untrained chemists, and then they bring it north and they cut it with everything from baby powder to rat poison. And nobody really knows what they're buying here in America because of that prohibition.
That's what gives the death penalty to heroin.
That's right. Leonard, we had a situation, 2008, I think it was. In one weekend, we had 14 young people, basically, I call them young people, 18 to about age 35, that died in one weekend because the cocaine they bought and took home and shot or snorted or however they ingested it, it was 80% heroin. It was no cocaine in it at all. It was an 80% batch of heroin, and it killed 14 kids in one weekend. And that's that random death sentence you're talking about.
As defense attorney, when a person sits down in the wrong chair in my office, the one that I don't want to be in, and they say, well, I took ecstasy, I look at them and I say, you have no clue what you took. Yep. You took something, it had an effect. You have no clue what you took. Butane extractions for marijuana, and I don't want to focus on marijuana, although it's become a good lead left, I think.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that?
Well,
they don't. I know where I was going. Butane. People do butane extractions at home, and a few of them blew up. Of course. Let me ask you: when was the last time you heard of Merck or Pfizer or one of the other major pharmaceutical labs have a blow up in their laboratory? How often do those chemists blow themselves up? No, I didn't say high school teachers. Professional drug chemistry labs. The answer is not very much. And then when they're done cooking the methamphetamine, for example, so the government can give it away free if they want, when they're done cooking it, guess what they do with the toxic waste? They don't throw it out their car window.
Well, one thing I also noticed, too, over the years is that, and I've bought a lot of it, but anytime I made a purchase of LSD, nowhere on the little tab did it give me the list of ingredients, the side effects, and who to call and contact should I have a problem with it.
Oh, mine always in college came with very clear instructions. They'd hand me this little orange tab. They'd say, trust me, this is Orange Sunshine. And oh, by the way, I'll tell you officially, here's the disclosure. This is really strong.
Well, what's also here? Here's another disclosure. We've got to pay our bills, and that's how we keep this show alive. And then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then come back and take a whole lot more time for hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org. Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Yes, yo! Ha ha! Boy, this is it, Dog Cypress Hill representing. Giving shouts out to my man Cashflow and Big T.E. Check this out, doing it live in the Palms Hotel in the Throwback Studio in Las Vegas, baby. I know you wish you was here, but you can't. I'ma tell you how we do things right now.
Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ. Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ.
Never quit, never let up. Best believe me, y'all. I'm down to go, head up. Press up on me, watch me just push back. I get hostile, don't let me do that. Ain't no stopping the bum rush till it's over. Make non-believers pray to Jehovah. I don't be running, I'll be serving up the madness. Give you a taste of what's really fucking happening. Oh, I got the scene in a chokehold. I'm wrecked up in the top 10 by the flagpole. Outside, inside, game be like flawless. I'm in the middle when it's time to get lawless. If I have to, I'm getting ill solo. Catch more reps than a Sherm Cholo. Killer man, nigga, swagging with my words. Drinking all you got and I'm checking all your herbs.
Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ. Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ. What the hell, I ain't tryna catch another L. Might as well lock me up and take me back to jail. Throw me in a cell, but I'ma leave a trail so I can work my way back, getting on swell. Nothing for sale, a story to tell. History in the making, no faking, I hope I don't fail. Dedicated to the game, working off my tail. Don't stop till I hit the top, check the mail. Never lose focus, you know it's the locust. In a cage full of rage, about to choke his ass out till he pass out. Best to tap out, get the full mountain, beat the crap out. It's a rap out, beat the block out, it's like a knockout. Twist that thing back till it pop out, that's what I'm talking about. It's a grudge, I never budge, I finish, never leave it in the hands of a judge. Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ. Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ.
You know I never quit, never stop, won't submit. Talking shit, running up in your face, I'm finna split. So it's time to lay this punk ass flat on his back. See, there ain't no competition and you know I don't slack. Your ass is whacking, now it's time to give that ass a submission. I have you wishing that your ass was on the boat somewhere fishing. I'm on a mission, and I ain't leaving without the title. I'm the undisputed champ, the new American Idol. See, it's vital to my success that I gotta take you out. Cause the champ of this caliber, I gotta have the clout. I'm respected by my peers, hold my title for years. Not to mention sacrificing the blood, sweat, and tears. I'm the ultimate fighter, and it gets no tighter. Get you in the octagon and burn that ass like a lighter. So I put you in a triangle choke, make you submit. Get to tapping, it's over because you know I never quit.
Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ. Never quit, never give in, never give up. Give it all you got to win, hold your head up. Choose to lose, you're headed back to the camp to return competition to the ultimate. It's the champ.
Yeah, never quit, never quit. That's how we've gotten this far down the road. That's how we've gotten so many states enjoying medical marijuana and having the benefits, and now 2 states with recreational marijuana. And our joint host is living in the state of Colorado. Judge Lenny Frieling is one of the people who gets to enjoy the benefits of recreational marijuana. Now, Your Honor, I mean, you don't have to answer publicly, but I never hesitate to ask publicly. Do you smoke marijuana now that it is legal in the state of Colorado? Do you enjoy the recreational utilization of God's creation known as cannabis sativa?
To quote the late President Nixon, let me say this about that. Yes. I also, when I'm being a little more cautious, might vaporize and use edibles, and I use them medically, and I happen to like those unpleasant side effects. So I use it recreationally, I use it medically, and, oh, by the way, even if it doesn't occur to me to smoke for a week or a day or a month, do I really give a damn, pardon my language, if the rest of the world does or doesn't? No, because it really doesn't matter much. Do I want somebody drinking and smoking and then driving? Frankly, no. I also don't want them overdosing on a codeine. I also don't want them taking too much diazepam, or a little bit if they're not used to Valium. There are many things that I don't want other people to do, and I hope I don't do. But as far as the appropriate, adult, respectful, private, inoffensive use of marijuana in its many, many wonderful forms, yes, I enjoy them both medicinally, and that's physically and psychologically, and recreationally. I mean, think of it. What in life can be too much better? And this is a Colorado example. I grin every time I think about it. What could be better than going to the string quartet from the Colorado Symphony Orchestra, walk outside to the fenced-in area, smoke what you want, walk in and listen to the Colorado Symphony Orchestra's string quartet?
Absolutely.
Life is good.
That can only be beautiful, and I know that that's got to be true. And some parts, now, is it true that it's just a lot of police officers in Texas are like big warm teddy bears, just trying to make the public feel at home, and if you get lost, they'll help you find your way to the nearest tavern or bar or restaurant?
You're at.
Hey, I live in Texas. Been here for 50 years now, I guess. And the point I would like to make is, you mentioned, Lenny, that you use it physically and for mental purposes. I'm an alcoholic. I had a bad problem with it. 30 years ago, I gave up alcohol. And from that point in time, I find a little relief, a little, I don't know how else to say it. Succor, I think, is a better word, perhaps.
Takes the edge off.
Takes the edge off. Keeps me from wanting to, quote, get outside myself through the use of alcohol. And before I quit alcohol, I got into fights, car wrecks, got arrested 13 times. Since I quit alcohol and use cannabis on occasion, I have not had one fight, one wreck, one ticket, one anything. Had no trouble with the law. And the sad thing is, every one of those 13 times I got busted for being drunk, I had drugs in my pocket. I was never charged for drunkenness. But it just goes to show you, you got to be careful out there.
Personally, I know that I think alcohol is dangerous as hell. And I also know that if I smoke more, I drink less.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Well, and there's all these studies that come out that talk about, comparing alcohol to marijuana, and every one of them shows that marijuana is a much safer product to use.
No comparison.
Yeah. But so many people have this perception that smoking cannabis is something akin to being drunk. And maybe there's a tangential point or two, but they are not the same thing as by any analysis, are they, Lenny?
No, changing consciousness is something humans and animals have done for centuries, longer, and there are many ways to change consciousness. Having a joint and eating a mushroom really are not related to each other, except that they both change consciousness. Dean, let me ask you a question. Do you have any particular thoughts on what LEAP can do over this next year with all that question entails?
That's a huge chunk to be biting off, I think.
Oh, yeah, I just put my microphone down and left the room.
But, well, okay, let me see how I can address it. The one thing I have done, and I'm glad to see that LEAP and others are doing it these days as well, and that is to just challenge the logic of this drug war in any venue that it's possible to do so. Because other than that Kevin Sabet and Patrick Kennedy, there are very few people on the other side left speaking about the need to continue down this same failed path. There are a few senators and reps and whatever that, when they have their chance, they dismiss the idea of changing the law. But the fact of the matter is there are fewer and fewer people every day speaking of the need for this drug war, and there are more and more people every day speaking of that need for change. And I think the vast majority of Americans understand this, whether they've hashed it out in their brains or not, as yet I can't say. But I think if you just take a glance at what's going on around the world, what's going on in America, we're empowering terrorist cartels and gangs, all of that's just gone on for 100 years. People are beginning to realize there is no benefit. And I think what I would hope that LEAP will do is to find that opportunity, that situation where we can bring forward in front of the biggest TV cameras possible, in the biggest venues possible, and to challenge the head of the ONDCP, to challenge the head of the DEA, to challenge the district attorney, the politicians that may speak up, and ask them to explain why they believe in the drug war. Because from my perspective, those who believe in drug war do not believe in public safety. And I think we just need to drive that home get a bigger hammer and just keep at it.
Do you think people will be able to make the leap from, it's okay to smoke pot, but don't tell me the government's going to sell heroin for $8 a pound, that, methamphetamine? Will we be able to, or how can we help them make that leap?
Well, the forward motion is on marijuana right now. It seems like universally. But what we have to do is explain, yes, that will be a good thing. 750,000 people per year won't go to prison, won't have their futures diminished or destroyed through that criminal record. But we'll still have another 750,000 people being busted, having that future destroyed through the use of these other drugs. Our children, our grandchildren will be caught up in this net. The terrorists will still thrive. The cartels will still kill 10,000 people a year or more. And the gangs will still be prowling our neighborhoods, selling these contaminated drugs to our children at a 17,000% markup. There is no benefit to this drug war, and we just need to drive that home.
So would it be fair to say that you do not see the marijuana legalization progress as any kind of a Box Canyon problem where we run into we gave you the pot, but don't try to tell me methamphetamine is part of that same logic? You do not see it, Box Canyon.
I see it as a temporary Box Canyon, yes, for a year, two, maybe, until we can keep driving home the point that, the gangs are still out there, the terrorists are still growing those flowers we forbid, and it's going to be kind of a second leap, if you will, to expose the fraud about these other drugs as well. So
it's not a Box Canyon. It's kind of a slow climb. Cool.
Yeah. I think that's probably going to hold true. That there are, and I don't want to offend anybody with this, but there are way too many marijuana reformers who don't give a damn about ending the drug war. They just want their weed, and they might just go sit on the couch and forget it.
I think we need to view it as lack of understanding.
Well, yeah. I mean, that is the case because, like I said, when I was doing that interview with Jack Cole, I was, one of the nation's biggest marijuana reformers. I was president of Houston Normal. That was where my focus was. And like I said, halfway through that interview with Jack Cole, it just clanged that bell real loud. And it moved me from that moment on to being a leap speaker, to talking about the end of the whole of the drug war, not just marijuana side.
When somebody turns on the light, it then becomes optional whether you keep your eyes closed or open. And somebody can turn on the light and you choose to keep your eyes closed. Yeah, that's your choice. I think the three of us are saying we're willing to open our eyes, and we're willing to suggest to other people that they can open their eyes and take a look, because we all know if they do that, we know what they'll see. And a headline I've been waiting for, and we've predicted and we wanted. I finally saw it about a week and a half ago. The wholesale price of Mexican marijuana dropped in half. Hallelujah, brother.
Well, I'm in Texas, and I can tell you, not quite in half anyway, but it dropped, yes.
Okay. I'll take for mostly true. That's good.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, the amounts I've seen over the last few years, the quality has actually improved as well, because they're having to compete with the good folks of Colorado.
Well, they're not communists after all.
No, I don't think so. Now we have, I don't know how to say it. The cartels are in Houston. This is where they bring stuff from Mexico. They bring it to Houston to bust it up into smaller loads, which they then ship to, San Antonio and Chicago and Atlanta. And we have a lot of bad shenanigans. I don't know how to say it. Just people getting killed, and nobody really being able to prove who it was, other than to say they think it was part of the cartels. And this is reminiscent, if you will, of Chicago, though Chicago right now is a lot worse than Chicago used to be. But it's just an example of how futile this effort is. I mean, 100 years on from the passage of the Harrison Narcotics Act, and we don't stop more than 10, maybe 15% of the drugs coming through. And yet we call that a success and worthy of doing forever. It's ludicrous, isn't it, Judge?
What concerns me greatly about what you said is your Houston description sounds like the way we would have described some or many of the cities in Mexico some years ago. And what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing you right, what I'm hearing is it's spreading along with the underground drugs and
right.
has reached Houston.
Yeah,
please,
it's been here.
You don't understand. Tell me I'm wrong and I misunderstood you.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's been that way for decades. I think in some ways what we're seeing is better reporting, more information sharing, more recognition of what was there all along that we just didn't know about. And it's, before maybe it was a Hispanic killed another Hispanic and nobody thought much of it. But now they're able to see that it was a cartel assassination, that sort of thing that previously we just wouldn't have recognized it for what it is.
Well, one thing I recognize is that we got to pay our bills, and if we don't stop and do that now, we will not have time to make it happen later in the broadcast. So we're going to come back here in about 2 minutes and take some more Time for Hemp. Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
Well, now, chocolate cake makes my poor stomach ache, and all those pills are too much for me to take. I don't like cocaine 'cause it makes me all uptight, but coffee and reefer makes me feel alright. Crystal method makes
baby, coffee and reefer does make me feel alright. First thing I do when I roll out of bed in the morning, get myself a great big cup of Joe. Then Joe gets dressed and goes to work, and then I get myself a cup of coffee, pack myself a bowl, and get busy in front of my computer trying to end this horrific war on drugs. Happy Wednesday, Leap Day, law enforcement against prohibition. We have a new joint host kicking off this year, Judge Lenny Frieling. And Your Honor, it rocks having you on the program. And we have one of our old, and just like me, he's old, one of our old joint hosts of the broadcast, Dean Becker, part of our family. And it rocks having you back, Dean. I love your work. And I'm going to let my joint host talk to my joint host and remind all of my joint listening audience that anytime you hear the word joint on the big joint broadcast, nearly 2.5 million people all around the world pack their bongs, their pipes, their vaporizers, and roll up a joint and jointly take time for hemp. I pass this joint conversation to you, my joint friends.
Well, I'd be happy to help us roll up the rest of the show.
Okay.
And just a real quick, gentlemen, thank you. This is so exciting I can't begin to say. I'll shut up now. Dean, you have done so many interesting things, continue to be so involved. What do we have upcoming? What should we be watching for from you?
Well, this week I am carrying part of a teleconference the DPA put together with a lot of notables talking about the changes to the marijuana laws and where we're at, where we're headed. Also have an interview with a gentleman, Anthony Johnson, who's with the International Cannabis Business Convention. It's going to be February 14 and 15 in San Francisco. And it's an example of how rapidly public mindset is changing, how people are getting into the business in one fashion or another. I always liked the thought that during the gold rush, it was good to be involved in selling shovels. And there are a lot of people out there selling shovels, so to speak, to the marijuana industry. It is now it's always been a multi-billion-dollar industry, but now it's a multi-billion-dollar legal industry. And it's creating jobs. It's restoring certain communities. It's beginning to, change the paradigm here in the U.S. And I guess what I most want to do is to, as I said earlier, is to challenge those in authority to defend the drug war. That's where my main focus is going to be for the year 2015.
What's always excited me about that challenge is that our theoretically more challenging audiences, very conservative groups, for example, everything we're saying is so consistent with their underlying philosophy of states' rights, individual responsibility, fiscal responsibility, what you gentlemen know well. Dean, tell us about your book.
Okay, well,
where, what, the name.
Okay, I appreciate that, Lenny. You know, I don't have a publisher or a publicist. I'm just a poor boy trying to do what I can to expose this fraud of drug war. The name of the book is To End the War on Drugs. I recommend that folks
to end the war on drugs.
Right, and I would suggest that people obtain the Policymakers edition. It's the second edition, so to speak. And if I'd like to share with you, I took this book to end the war on drugs to Washington, D.C. We gave away over 600 copies. We hand-delivered to every U.S. representative, every U.S. senator, to the president and his cabinet, to the 9 Supreme Court justices, a copy of this book to educate them, to let them know the end is coming. And we also mailed a copy to all 50 U.S. governors on that same date. That was July 29 when we did that. And I got very little response. I did get a response from the Attorney General. I got a response from Justice Keegan, I think is her name.
And it wasn't an order to cease and desist?
No. It was not.
How do we obtain it so we can make sure the politicians we know have it?
Well, all right. It is available on Kindle in the audio. In the I don't know, the Kindle format. I don't know how you say it. And then you can get the
say Kindle, and everyone has it before. They already have it. You said it. They have it already.
And then it's also out there on Amazon. And I think the price has actually come down on it now, and it's 340 pages. It's not an easy read. This is not a little primer. This is something to fortify your brain, to get you ready to go out and do your part out there, dear listener, to help end this madness. You know there's something wrong. This book will explain to you exactly what is wrong to end the war on drugs.
What I would normally think of as a tome, in this case I'm thinking of as a tomb where we will bury the war on drugs where it belongs.
It needs to be. I envision a day when we finally repeal these laws, and I don't know, we should build a big monument with a warning on it. Never, never, never to prohibit any substance again, because it just doesn't work.
It's astonishing to me how many people understand and agree that prohibition didn't work when they're reminded about how many years our war on drugs, basically since 1937, unless you want to count from Nixon, has been going on. Everyone agrees, no, unsuccessful, failure, quantities haven't gone down, ridiculous. And then when you ask them, well, if we did it another year, we did it since 37, what about another year? Will that matter? Everyone knows. No. Well, what about 5 more years? Everyone knows it. No. If you ask the right questions, which I'm trying to ask of Dean and shut up myself, if we can ask the right questions, I think most people are forced to give us the answers we need them to be giving.
Well,
right.
We are getting down to the last couple of minutes. Dean, when I spoke to you last year about doing programming for the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network, you said that after the first of the year, you would start some type of programming. Is that going to happen anytime soon? And also let people know what's going on with your Drug Truth Network. I keep hearing more of Doug McVeigh and not much of you there. What's up?
Well, I have handed over the reins to one of my programs, Century of Lies, to Doug. He's been doing it for, 4 or 5, 6 months now. And I'm not ready to come back just yet. I have hopes that perhaps maybe March we'll talk again. But I mean, I have this effort to challenge the head of the ONDCP and the DEA, and I've frightened myself pretty good, really, with the response I've gotten. They wanted to know, they wanted to know a lot about me this particular time because I got the DC number to the HQ of these things. Got it from Eric Holder's office. I think he's with us. He just can't say it yet. His secretary told me, look, once he quits office, call me back. I'll hook you up with him. Maybe he'll come on then and talk about this. Like with many LEAP speakers, they wait until they retire, leave office, before they speak too boldly. Not like you, Lenny. Or our current director, Neil Franklin, who spoke while he was still wearing the badge. But it's mostly after they retire, folks say what needs to be said.
That's true. Homeland Security, one of their agents, when they retired, sent me a text message telling me that they would certainly appreciate it if I turned off my webcam when I took a shower. They were tired of seeing that.
Casper, do me this one small favor.
Yes.
It would perhaps be a good idea, because I'm a rather honest fellow.
Yes.
Please consider twice before you ask me if I have ever smoked a joint in a Homeland Security parking lot.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Well, gentlemen, this is your chance to give a shout-out to URL. We're going to wrap it up and let the whole world know how important it is to take time for him. Dean?
Well, I just did a tally. I have over 7,000 of my radio segments available at drugtruth.net. And, every week we produce 9 more segments.
Good.
So, folks, please check it out and get a copy of my book, To End the War on Drugs. Share it with your friends and your family. It's time to step up and end this madness.
And Your Honor?
As a last word, I would have to say Homeland Security was paying attention. They didn't have me arrested. They did not ignore me. They did see me. and just to cover my butt there, I'm going to say, gentlemen, thank you for permitting me to be part of this wonderful, wonderful effort. Thank you.
Absolutely, and we look forward to having you part of our family here every Wednesday when we let the whole world know how important it is to take time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent.
Herbal healing. This Naya man singing his song. You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. This Naya man singing his song. You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. What I see and I observe, no chemical, it is a natural herb. Go spread the word, it calm your nerve and soothe your mind when you feel disturbed. With my Congo drum, singing my song, you better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. You hypocrite and parasite, why you a fight against the tree of life? You don't hear how much people are living a pain, and it make them sleep at night. With my Congo drum, singing my song, You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. This Congo drum singing my song. You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. Solomon. Give all your vote. While millions are dead when them inhale the smoke, you take away their herb passport. This Naya man singing his song. You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. This Naya man singing his song. You better listen to the Rasta man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. This is a spiritual and herbal war. Won't make you no lock down your friend run bar. I'm gonna kill more people by far. So divine intervention I am calling for. With my Congo drum chanting this song. You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the grave of King Solomon. This Congo drum singing my song. You better listen to the medicine man. Legalize the herb, we heal the nation. Found on the tomb of King Solomon. Solomon.
Get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly. If I said some silly thing, then that's the reason why. Shiva, my sativa, you get me too high. Get me too high. Hey Shiva, got a fever. You get me too high. You get me too high. It's funny how the sky and each cloud and every moment seem to drift right by. You get me too high. I've never been this shy, but I swear I love you, baby, till the day I die. Shiva, my sativa, you get me too high. Get me too high. Hey Shiva, got a fever. You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly. If I said some silly thing, then that's the reason why. Shiva, my sativa, you get me too high. Get me too high. Hey Shiva, got a fever. You get me too high.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.